Welcome to the Happiness Matters podcast, where we'll explore happiness at work and show you how to coach yourself to be happier there and more successful too, no matter what.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our next Q&A session at the end of our Series 1 coaching. I'm Julia Seal, your host here at Happiness Matters, where we learn how to coach ourselves to success and happiness every Tuesday. Thanks to you all for sending in your questions so far. I think you'll find today really interesting. We've got questions on meditation, how to keep your self-coaching top of mind, using red flags to change your life, and the shame of discovering you're an emotional child. Just a small warning, there is a huge wind blowing outside this morning. So you might hear something. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get that out from the recording. Now, how did you get on with exploring what success means for you after last week? And where did you land with your happiness versus success formula? I'd love to know how you got on. Either drop me a note via Ask Julia on the website or chat to me online through Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And I'm there at Happiness-Matters.coach. Let's get started with the first topic that I want to revisit in some detail. What you're discovering about yourself when it comes to emotional childhood and emotional immaturity. I did a whole episode on this topic in our mini coaching journey for your negative emotions. It was episode 1.21 and called Emotional Immaturity and Your Happiness Wisdom. It's actually one of our most popular ones. So please do go back and listen. We started off with Daniel Goleman's catchphrase, emotional intelligence, and the 5 aspects that make up this definition. And then I introduced 3 coaches who have taken wisdom from philosophy, psychology, and neuroscience and brought them into the world of coaching, unpacking skills to practically grow these emotional intelligence competencies. All 3 are teachers of mine and all run coaching schools. Alan Seeler in Australia, who's an ontological coach, Brooke Castillo in North America, who's a life coach, and Marita Fridgen, who's a relationship systems coach, raised in South Africa, but now based in North America. And lastly, we looked at our happiness wisdom concepts in light of these insights. At the end of the session, I gave you 10 questions to help you explore your emotional intelligence. And you can get these questions by listening back, but also by going to the show notes for episode 1.21 on our website, Happiness-Matters.coach. And your questions to me have centered around the last 3 in this list. Where are the pockets in my life where I show up as an emotional child? Where am I powerful in my life, and where do I hand over my power to others? In what situations do I expect others to meet my needs and expectations? And in what situations do I allow others to affect my feelings? And in particular, asking yourself why on each of them brought up underlying thoughts that you didn't realize you had and reactive patterns of behavior that you're pretty distressed to discover. So, Julia, I'm horrified to discover I am an emotional child. I am so embarrassed to see now how much my daily catch-up meeting with my manager affects my mood for the whole day. And even more horrified to see how it makes me irritable with my team and how I go home and snap at my husband too. I feel like there's just no solution. This is just going to be never ending as my boss is very critical and he's more so when he's having a bad day. Or this. I can see that I'm an emotional child in some relationships and an emotional adult in others, like at work, I'm an adult. But when I have to deal with my mother-in-law, I think I'm swapping to be an emotional child, as every comment she makes about my house or what I've made for supper just makes me irritable, and I dread the days that she wants to come over. And this one. How can I get myself to stay in emotional adulthood all the time. I really shouldn't be so irritable over household chores. First of all, I want to remind us all now that showing up as both emotional adults and emotional children through our day is completely normal. All of us move in and out of these modes, sometimes multiple times a day. We are not in emotional childhood all the time, but we are all in emotional childhood some of the time, in pockets of our lives. And it's these pockets that we're addressing in coaching, as much of your unhappiness will be originating from here. And how can you tell where you are? Which mode are you in? Remember that emotional childhood is when grown adults have not matured past childhood in terms of managing their emotions. This means they're still reacting to their emotions, acting them out, or avoiding them. So what I'm saying is that we all react to our emotions in certain situations, acting them out or avoiding them instead of choosing the best response for the situation. And the reason we're still reacting rather than responding is as simple as which part of our brain is running the show at that particular time. The primitive primal brain, also known as our habit brain, our survival brain, our automatic brain, the one that reacts very, very quickly along well-established pattern pathways, or our prefrontal cortex, our thinking brain, our human brain that responds slower and more carefully. So the simplicity is just this. The automatic response that our primal brain is using for this particular situation is not suitable. It's inappropriate. And we don't have a more appropriate response that's set on automatic yet. That's why certain situations get the reputation of being triggers for us. The situation triggers an automatic patterned response that results in behaviors we don't want. So the first reaction that our brain goes to is a think, feel, act pattern that gives us results we don't want. The only problem here is exactly this. What think, feel, act pattern the brain has available to it when it's on automatic lightning speed. We are just unskilled in this current situation. We don't currently have the capacity to respond skillfully. And so the process becomes learning how to respond skillfully rather than react automatically, which means taking it out of your primitive brain and putting our prefrontal cortex to work on it. Eventually, once a new skillful response has been learnt, a new think, feel, act pattern established, your brain will put it back into the primitive brain, freeing up your prefrontal cortex to do other intentional, purposeful work. And this is all that's going wrong here. There is nothing wrong with you or your brain. It's doing exactly what it's meant to be doing. And you're just learning in coaching to use it on purpose, like the amazing tool it is at your disposal. I also want to remind you that emotional adulthood is about being completely responsible for all our emotions. Taking responsibility to respond skillfully to our feelings of pain, because no one else is to blame for your sadness, unhappiness, frustration, anger, irritability, feeling undervalued. Only you. Taking responsibility to respond skillfully to our feelings of pleasure. No one else is responsible for us feeling happy, secure, loved, valued, engaged. Only you. As soon as this concept lands for you, that no one in the world makes you feel anything, only you, once you've got it, it will completely unlock who you are in the world and how you show up in relationships. This is the great work of coaching, and it all starts with your awareness. So today, can you become more and more aware of how you look to others for how you feel? And the easiest way to do this is to watch your language. Watch when these kind of statements come out of your mouth. My mother-in-law hurt my feelings. My boss irritates me. My husband makes me happy. He doesn't respect me. She just makes me so mad. And then lastly, what I picked up from many of you is the level of self-judgment and self-criticism of your unintentional automatic responses. Lots of comments, I shouldn't be like this, I should know better. Remember, my dear friends, you will halt your personal growth, your development, your self-coaching will stall if you allow self-judgment to creep in. The minute you judge and criticize yourself, your primitive brain thinks that your survival is at threat. And so it takes over and you go into automatic reaction for more and more of your day. This makes it less easy for you to be self-aware, to reflect on your behaviors, and to intentionally decide to practice something different. So it's really less easy to access your prefrontal cortex for purposeful and intentional responses. Self-criticism is just not useful to your self-coaching, and most certainly not to your happiness either. To help you with this a little more, I'd go back and listen to episode 1.23 on buffering, as I talk about self-judgment and how it adds to the net negative of your unhappiness. Then also get to know your inner critic better and learn to work with her. Listen to episodes 1.12, 13, and 14, and there's also the self-smizing coaching tool to use with these episodes. You'll find this self-coaching really powerful to uncover the relationship that you have with yourself. Lastly, I expand on the powerlessness that comes with emotional childhood in episode 131 Q&A called Ending Powerlessness in You and Others. This topic, your emotional intelligence and how it's serving you and getting you into trouble in your relationships, is a great topic to bring to my current research project. If you don't already know, my 2020 research project involves my Transforming Difficult Relationships coaching program. So you might well want to sign up to this free coaching offer right now. You can do this on the website Happiness-Matters.coach. Click on the big yellow button called Coach with Julia and choose the research project option to book your free insight session with me. It's 20 minutes. I've spent the early part of this year and our lockdown in South Africa creating something very exciting for you, and I'm now looking for some of you to coach with me as my research participants. So is this you? You're a professional woman, you're working in a management or leadership position. You're over 45, and specifically, you're having what I call the 50 conversation in your head. So either you're nearing 50 and the conversation in your head is, I must get my life sorted out before I turn 50, and we've all been there. Or you've already turned 50, so that immediate pressure is over, but you're getting increasingly frustrated that things are not different after 50, that you still haven't managed to make the changes you wanted, and 55, 58, and 60 is looming. Then you must have a relationship that needs work. You know you need to address this relationship if you do want to move forward and enjoy your midlife thoroughly. But you don't particularly want to do the work. You don't know how to change things, and it's actually pretty unpleasant for you to think about, painful for you to imagine working on. For example, you might have spent the last lockdown with your life partner and your relationship deteriorated still further. Or you might have had time to reflect and decided that something must be done about the relationship with your daughter, your mother-in-law. Always. It could just as easily be a work relationship that's ruining your daily experience of work, a team member that gets under your skin like no one else, a colleague on the executive team who enrages you. You feel despondent, dread, anxiety, probably some shame that even now, when you're so successful in your life in other areas, you're not successful at this one relationship, but you feel at a loss at what to do. You don't feel powerful or strong or capable in this one area. Very important to know, this coaching with me does not need the other person to be part of the coaching. This is all with you individually, and it's not going to require you to get involved in conflict resolution sessions or counseling sessions or to have deep and meaningful, difficult conversations. This is the very exciting thing. You and I coach together only. Just the two of us working with your inner life partners, your mind, your emotions, and your body. Together, we'll change this relationship for you. We'll profoundly change the way you experience this relationship, and we'll set you up for success through your midlife. The commitment from you is 2 months coaching once a week with some additional self-coaching practice during the week. And the payment is twofold. There's no cash involved, so it's free from that sense, but I am asking for payment. I want feedback on the program. Firstly, I want to know what worked and what needs adapting so it's more impactful. And secondly, I'll be wanting you to write a review on how you benefited. Your feedback will be combined into a larger project that I'm working on. If this is you and you'd love to coach with me for the next 2 months on your most troublesome, frustrating, infuriating relationship, if you've heard me talk about emotional maturity, emotional childhood, toxic relationships, and powerlessness, and you want to explore these further, then head off to the website, Happiness-Matters.coach right now. Click on the big yellow button, Coach with Julia, and choose Research Project. I am so looking forward to meeting you. The next question I want to address from you is about meditation. How do I use it in coaching and here on the podcast for our self-coaching, and how to get started? Last week was World Meditation Day. So it's a good time to touch on this as there was a lot in the media and it can be very confusing to know where to start. However, as you know, Series 2 is all about brain management, and I'll be going deeply into mindfulness and meditation very soon. But for now, I want to remind you that in Series 1, we already got started with our brain management with 2 tools that I introduced in episode 1.19, Coaching Your Unhappiness. This was the kickoff episode to our negative emotions mini coaching journey. And the 2 tools I introduced were thought downloads and 3 long, strong breaths. So you can download the free coaching tool on the website Happiness-Matters.coach under the free and fun section. The other useful episode to go back and listen to is episode 1.35, COVID-19, Keep Calm and Coach Yourself, where I walk you through a meditation practice to calm anxiety and spiraling thoughts. These resources will give you a basic guide to how to start meditating without making it too complex or even too strange. For now, just start by practicing 3 long, strong breaths. Try and do it as many times as you can during the day, whenever you remember. This is the most powerful way to start a meditation practice, a sitting practice, a brain management habit. Way more doable than jumping in at the deep end for 55 mindful minutes every morning at dawn, sitting cross-legged on a cushion with candles and music in the background. So much easier. If you're ready to go a bit further than just the basic breathing practice, start by carving 10 to 15 minutes into your day, every day. It's the frequency, not the length of time, that's important at this stage of building a meditation habit. And then continue to use the 3 long, strong breaths tool. but obviously for a bit longer than 3 breaths. Since it was World Meditation Day and Buddha's birthday or Vesak at the end of April, I want to remind you of how he suggested to take his teachings on meditation. He urged those who listened to him to not just take his word for everything, but to keep an open mind, to try out ideas for yourself and see what it brings you, and then decide if you want to take it on board and keep using it. So please do experiment with everything, even all these coaching tips and tools. Experiment to see if it works for you. Try something for 2 or 3 weeks. Don't be too quick to chop and change, but keep experimenting to see what you enjoy, what benefits you find, what slows your breathing, and what starts to settle your mind and clear your thoughts. The last question was a plea. Julia, how do I remember to do any of these coaching tips and tools you've been suggesting? They're all such good ideas. I try them for a few days and then I just forget them. My friends, it's Paperclip Day later this week. Yes, these funny bits of bent wire have their very own day. Probably because they really are the most amazing organizational tools. So I thought I'd give you some ideas on how to keep your self-coaching top of mind through the day, every day, keeping yourself organized enough to remember the most important stuff, which is, of course, your daily self-growth and your step-by-step evolution. This podcast is full of coaching tools and tips that you can use every week to practice your self-coaching. There's at least 2 or 3 ideas in every session, and there's over 50 sessions already. I certainly don't expect you to do every single one every week, but rather to apply Buddha's experimental practice. But here are some tips on how to remind yourself as you build new habits, new think, feel, act patterns in your brain. First, choose 1 to 3 tiny new habits to try out. Things you want to remember, like breathing mindfully, or a thought that you want to think on purpose. And the less of these, the better if you're new to self-coaching practices. Commit to trying this for a week at least. The longer, the better. Don't be too impatient with yourself. I commit to a month at a time, sometimes even 4 months. So in a year, I'll be leveling up 12 small habits or 3 new, bigger evolutions. Then set up a reminder system for yourself as the start. You can write out reminders to yourself on little bits of paper and use those paper clips, or on a couple of sticky notes, which are just as useful an invention as the paperclip, and put these notes in various places around your home, your office, your car. 2 of my favorite places are in my wallet and inside my laptop, so I've got to touch it and move it somewhere else throughout the day. You can stick it to your computer screen or even add a notification to your home screen on your cell phone. The idea is to keep seeing it all day. Then schedule the activity in your calendar exactly where you intend to fit it in, even if it's 10 minutes. And set yourself some calendar reminders, like 15 minutes before, 5 minutes before, and on time. You can choose something in your life that will become a flag reminder for you. In episode 1.6, What's the Toughest Thing for You?, I introduced the idea of the red flag warning system, based on how we warn surfers about great white sharks here in Cape Town. I use this system to help me with my urges to overeat, particularly when I have an urge to eat knickknacks, South Africa's best maize cheese puff snack ever. So when I have a craving for knickknacks out of the blue, usually when I'm driving home over the mountain, I know I'm wanting to buffer. I know there's something in me that I don't want to look at. My red flag has gone up, and it's time to coach myself. Choose something meaningful for you that will become your red flag reminder. A reminder of where you're going off track with your self-coaching, if you've moved out of responding and back into reaction. This is just an intentional decision that you make. You let your brain know and you start practicing reminding yourself with it every time you see it. Think about the skill you're learning. It takes about 3 to 5 days, and then you'll be able to rely on this tool to work as your red flag guidance system. I illustrated a similar way to remind yourself intentionally in episode 1.8, What's Behind Smiley, the Yellow Smiley Face. That was such a fun episode. Here I described how I use the color yellow. Every time I see yellow when I'm out in the world, I have created a habit for myself to think purposefully and intentionally about happiness and my own happiness. So something that I'm happy about or grateful for. I might see a girder painted yellow on a building construction site, or someone pulling a yellow suitcase through the airport, and it reminds me to take a moment to appreciate where I am. What could you use in your life, something that appeals to you to turn towards something that has a more positive impact on your physical and emotional state and on the social connections and relationships around you? Now, to show you how far this flag game can go and how idiosyncratic we are as humans, I even have paperclips with yellow Mr. Happy on them. It gets ridiculous. Okay, so that's it for this week. Thank you again for all your questions and the ideas on topics you're interested in. I am laughing because you're getting an insight into my brain. I've so enjoyed all your questions and hope I've done them justice over these last 3 episodes. Remember, if you do want to coach with me individually, if you've got a question about deepening the coaching we're doing here on the podcast, and you want to explore happiness and success in your midlife, please go to Coach with Julia at Happiness-Matters.coach, where you can book a free insight session to see how we might coach together. I was planning to finish off these Q&As this week, but I've been asked to expand on some of my earlier comments on the work-life balance conversation, the great work-life divide. So next week we'll have a look at this topic in light of our self-coaching. That'll be fun. May you be happy. May you be free. There is no better time to do this coaching together. Bye for now. Take care of yourselves as we end off this very strange COVID-19 May that we've had.
Thanks for joining us on this Happiness Matters podcast. Do join us again here next week on Tuesday. You can subscribe to this series at Apple Podcasts on iTunes, or you can sign up for it on our website, Happiness-Matters.coach. That's Happiness-Matters.coach. COACH. Also, you can join our conversation on Facebook by following us there. Our Facebook page is also Happiness-Matters.coach.